Today we have Jim Fetzer. It's the day after Christmas, December 26, 2016, and there's a lot of things happening, just like in 1913, where they shoved the Federal Reserve Act in. Lots of things are going on in the waning days of the Obama uh, horrific administration. And Jim, I want to start off with introducing my radio show that you're on every Monday. Uh, Probably one of the top guests we ever have had on. You are an amazing researcher. I want to start off with Nutrimedical.com. I'm a functional medicine doctor, but I'm also a doc that had presidential level security clearance in the mid 90s. And I've worked on various projects taking care of employees working on U.S. Space Command Strategic Defense Star Wars. I get very interested in conspiracies, especially after being the exit examiner for the Murrah building, where the special op people told me that they actually demolished, the building was demolished with micronukes, RDX, etc., and that it was a false flag run by the government in conjunction with former East German Stasi and munitions experts, and Timothy McVeigh was actually operating as a government agent. What we have to understand is the same thing goes with functional medicine. The medical system doesn't want to fix itself because it makes too much money. We have a broken healthcare system that now Obama has compounded, and hopefully Trump, with our help, will actually fix it. Now, my show is the Nutrimedical Report. It's on Genesis, on Republic Broadcasting Network. It used to be on Genesis for 10 years. And it's Nutrimedical, NUTRImedical.com. You can actually get a free consult request by email if you just go to this block here on the right-hand side, which shows a stethoscope. We have specials all the time. Our next special, by the way, is this coming Thursday, the 29th. If you're a regular customer and our information's online, you can just call us or email and say, I want this, this, and this, and we'll actually forward it to the day of the special so that you can see we have my design, Nutri Silver, one of the most powerful antipathogenics in the world. My Nutri Defense I designed to block all viral pathogens. And Brain Power for protection of your brain from oxidative stress and memory. Power C Plus, the most powerful vitamin C in the world. We have diagnostic technology that you can buy on time and actually set up a satellite site for us with QRMA and the Metapathia. We have, of course, Green Tea Supreme and Cardiovasc, so several hundred nutraceuticals. We've also opened up here, if you look at our product line, we've opened up, we not only have our NDMEs to help chaperone minerals in and Cardiovasc, we have Lumen Photon light therapy technology, Mountain Red Velvet from New Zealand to literally turn your body back into a fetal state to really generate your tissues and stem cells. We have ozone therapy, home detox technologies, hydrogen anion body detox, and then we have the diagnostics, VibraSlim whole body vibration, and I just opened up this last week our Amazon Nutrimedical store, and there's about 100 products in there, including things like Pulse for sinus care, some nutraceuticals, other technologies you'll find extremely useful. The Dr. U book is available as well. It explains functional medicine, which includes medicine, surgery, chiropractic, osteopathy, quantum diagnostics, etc. And then we have, of course, our DNA telomeres, resonant harmonic frequencies you'll hear on the show, and the Carrot Bar Gold business. So very comprehensive. We cover everything. We have top people like Jim Fetzer on regularly. And Jim, I want to start off with your slide set. We're going to start from the beginning here, and it should be pretty evident to people that you're a world-class expert on the logic and obtaining real evidence and finding out whether it's true or not. Let's start from the top, and I'm going to bring your picture down here for a moment so that everybody can see the full slide set, but I'll bring it up periodically. Go ahead and tell us the story behind this.
Perfect, Bill. A pleasure to be with you again. What we had was a remarkable abstention of the United States from clearing the way for a Security Council condemnation of Israelis' continued expansion of settlements in areas of the occupied West Bank that are clearly illegal, grossly immoral, violations of international law, inhumane in every possible respect, where, for example, the General Assembly had a recent vote where the number was like 157 nations to 3, and the 3 were the United States, Israel, and Micronesia, indicating how ridiculous the situation has become. In this instance, for reasons I cannot explain, Barack Obama had the United States abstain instead of veto the resolution, which was a very good thing. And now, of course, predictably, Bibi Netanyahu is complaining about how unfair the world is to Israel, how they are the poor victims of all kinds of anti-Semitism when, of course, criticizing the policies and actions of the government of Israel has nothing to do with anti-Semitism, which is to discount the value or the worth of an individual and their opinions on the basis of their ethnic origin or religious orientation. In fact, ironically, because the DNA studies have shown that the occupants of Israel who are Jewish descend from the Khazarian region of Eastern Europe rather than from the Palestinian region, whereas the Palestinians are all properly qualified as Semites. It turns out that the greatest practitioner of anti-Semitism in the world today is, in fact, Israel itself.
Isn't that ironic? Now, what's interesting is the ancient Khazars had a pagan religion that paralleled the Babylonian version of which had deteriorated of ancient Hebrew, which included the two houses of Ephraim and Judah. And by the time after 1,300 years in Babylon, the religion was so paganized that it was very easy for King Balaam, I think it was 8 or 9 centuries ago, to convert the Khazars to Judaism rather than Islam or Christianity. So you have an interesting fact. What we have now is kind of a flip-flop. The Palestinians that are hell-bent on killing the Jews are in fact 86 to 87% genetically ancient Hebrews, and the 98% of the Khazars that call themselves Jews in Israel are genetically not, except by intermarriage with Jews, with the ancient Hebrews. They're not of Jewish blood descendants.
Your audio
it's really
is interrupted.
Very bizarre, isn't it?
I think not coincident. You may want to repeat that last claim, Bill, because your audio was interrupted.
Yeah, the interesting thing, I think, is that, oops, just a second now. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the ancient Hebrews were deteriorated over about 13 centuries. And let me put this audio back up. The ancient Hebrews deteriorated over about 13 centuries. And what happened is that over that time, they became so paganized that when King Balaam decided, I think around 9 centuries ago, to convert the, well, that's interesting, my CPU, the 9 centuries, the ancient Hebrews were so paganized that it was very easy transition for him to become Jewish, because they become basically pagans compared to the ancient Hebrew religion. And so that 87% of the Palestinians are actually of ancient Jewish and Hebrew blood, both houses, and only about 2% of the Khazars that call themselves Jews in the state of Israel are actually of blood descendancy. They're primarily from the South Caucasus Mountains, and they were the raiders that would attack the Silk Trail coming from Europe and Eastern Europe into China every year. In fact, it's interesting, my great-grandfather, who was a Basha from Syria, owned one of the major caravans and traveled with my great-grandmother twice a year to China from Damascus, Syria. And it was the Khazars over many centuries that continued to attack them through the mountains as they had to pass through the southern Caucasus to head to China. So it's a kind of a very ironic situation that those that defend the state of Israel, in fact, are not Jews, and those who are actually of blood descendancy are now extreme radicalized Muslims with a pseudo-faith that is basically Sharia mind control. And that's why at 3 years of age they put bomblets on them in their third birthday, little boys, saying someday you're going to become a human bomb. So the whole thing is so insane that, it really is. And the situation now, of course, is we are tied to Israel. So, in fact, we can't disavow them. But it turns out I also know that the ancient descendants became, if you want to call it, of these Khazars, were also tied directly to the viziers of Europe, the wizards. And most of them came from the area of Basra, including the family that 2 centuries ago moved to Saudi Arabia and made deals with the British to set up the Saudi kingdom in Israel. So it turns out that there's this kind of weird connections here. Not only is the current director of the CIA a Saudi mole, but so is Obama. And so now we have the ancient connection of Middle Eastern wizardry played through the current state of Israel and their globalists, which includes Bibi Netanyahu and Lieberman, on the one hand, and we have their direct alliances between many of their agents in Saudi Arabia are also agents of Israel. They actually have dual agency. So it's beyond bizarre what's really going on. And on the other hand, we can't disavow Israel as our ally, but we need to stop letting them control our intelligence agencies and our foreign policy. APAC and these agencies literally control the United States and Congress and threaten them. And on the one hand, on the other hand, we need to maintain some kind of alliance, but we have to have a strong alliance where they don't wag the dog. In other words, they're the tail wagging the dog, America. And it's pretty insane, isn't it?
They've been doing a pretty good job of it, Bill. If Obama did something right here by having the United States abstain, the next two slides show that he's also capable of doing serious wrongs, where we have Obama's Christmas gift signing the NDAA for 2017, which includes a dangerous anti-propaganda bill, which is reflected by the third slide. This bill, as we previously reported, will criminalize fake news and propaganda on the web. A key piece of legislation cracking down on free speech and independent media. In layman's terms, the act will allow the government to crack down with impunity against any media outlet it deems propaganda. They're going to have a lot of money to fund counter propaganda to make sure the government's approved stories drown out the alternative media and journalists who question the status quo. What's most stunning about this bill is it's so blatantly unconstitutional, since the right of free speech and freedom of the press is guaranteed by the First Amendment, which states Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And this is especially a blatant example of violating the oath the man took when he swore to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic, here attempting to gut the First Amendment in a very direct, obvious, blatant fashion.
Well, here's the thing. There's several different consequences, and I'm not sure how it'll play out, but a general principle is that light is brighter when the darkness is darker. And give you an example. Let's say they legislated that when I came on the air or you came on the air, we had to have so much airtime for an alternative broadcaster that would say blatant manufactured lies about the same data that people can check out themselves. What in fact it would do is exactly what's happened to the major media, that because the alternative media is present, even if we just state facts are in the public open media, the government would completely gut itself of any respect by the public. The second consequence would be that we in the alternative media would find alternative encrypted ways of broadcasting to the public. It might take a period of anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, but what would happen during that hiatus is the public would completely no longer respect the public media. We know that from millennials, that during the election, part of the reason why they ran other candidates is because the fight and the destruction of the character of Donald Trump on one hand and the corruption exposed about Hillary on the other hand made them run toward other candidates like Bernie Sanders, who obviously made some points about issues, but his solutions were insane, or Jill Stein, who basically just wanted to gather power from her pseudo-environmental movement. So what I see happening is several consequences. One is the destruction that's already happening to the major media. They're like a bull elephant that's been shot in the head, and they're going to run 5 miles to the river, but they're going to face plant and die. And the problem is, an act like this, if they actually try to mete it out, is going to be met with reactions in the Supreme Court, and it will end up killing the public media, including these billionaire media and the government spokespeople that try to manipulate the public. It'll finally put an end to them.
Well, what's fascinating about this is the principal disseminators of propaganda are the mainstream media, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC, especially egregious CNN and the like.
Right.
This is an issue to which we shall return, Bill, in the sequel.
Right.
I've discovered a new website, muslimstatistics.blogspot.com.
Right.
That just abounds with information important to Americans. I have 4 slides about it. Here's
Right.
one: 81% of Muslims surveyed support Islamic State slaughters. That was from a poll conducted by Al Jazeera.
Is that
On
uh,
the
is that
next
is
slide,
that worldwide Muslims, or is it just in say a state or a country or America?
I can't answer that off the top of my head, Bill. But the next shows in Sweden, an estimated 77% of rapes are committed by 2%, the 2% Muslim population. In Germany, 75% of Algerian migrants have been sex assault suspects.
Wow.
If you go to the next slide, 68% of Saudis prefer their jihad ally, Hillary Clinton, to be president of the United States.
Wow.
Sweden's Muslim problem: 500,000 women are sexually attacked each year. In fact, Sweden has become the rape capital of the universe because of the Muslim migration.
Right.
And the last of this set of slides: 50% of British Muslims surveyed refuse to report terrorism. 44% want a forced dress code for women, and that the world's 27 most violent and worst cities are dominated by Islam. And if we add one more, we'll see the Peace Day resistance. Barack Obama has obliterated the data record bank established by the Department of Homeland Security to keep track of Arabs and Muslims in the United States in order to thwart Donald Trump's efforts from doing anything to deport them. This is one of many signs we have that Barack Obama is more interested in protecting Muslims than he is in upholding the Constitution of the United States or protecting our own security. It's completely outrageous, Bill.
Yeah. Well, I think that yeah. I want to mention a comment about this first. And I've had many experts on. Bill Warner is our top one. He's a Tennessee State University professor, and interesting, he's in a similar field to you, teaching logic and journalism. And he's retired, and his website is called politicalislam.com. Now, he says the least dangerous part of Islam is the jihad of murder, which we have all the media focus on. The most dangerous parts of the jihad are the jihad of politics, the jihad of taking over universities, the jihad of educating people that you have to Sharia-compliant textbooks, say in Tennessee, and the jihad of media. We have that right now. We have the jihad of expending political correctness to deal with things that are obscene. His statement and the statement of Walid Shubat, who used to be a Palestinian terrorist and became a Christian, married an American, and their son Theodore runs Shubat.com. What they basically say is that Islam is not a religion. It is a geopolitical control system, which is why there's a direct alliance between Islam and the globalists, because the globalists, just like the letter from Albert Pike kept in the British Museum, it's very probable that the Muslims are being taken for a ride, and then eventually, as the West clenches its fist, as I saw an expert on Islam on Fox News the other day, he said we have three groups. We have Muslims that want to integrate, that are usually wealthy and educated. We have Muslims that are basically believe in basically in an Islamic state, but they're not jihadists. But out of that group comes the jihadists, and the problem is that the moderate Muslims, including doctors, lawyers, engineers, will not report, because it's part of the religion and their culture, will not report extreme Islam or imams to promote terrorism or full force Sharia law, which is dangerous to the culture because it's against the Constitution. And all the Constitution of any Western republic is completely anathema to Islam, because it's either Islam or nothing. So what we have to understand, and this is where I agree with General Flynn, it's pretty extreme. I don't believe that we should allow any Muslim immigration to the West. Number two, it's not a matter of ultra vetting, and if you want to ultra vet, there's three things you need to do. The first is genetic vetting for a group of genes that's very common among Muslim people from North Africa and the Middle East, a monoamine oxidase 2 gene that actually causes violence. Up to 15% of the population carries it. The second is a gene for packaging tryptophan that also has a higher incidence in these populations. And if you combine that with an extreme, we call twisted religion, that is chimeric. In other words, Islam can be a peaceful religion, it can be a violent religion, it literally adapts to whatever environment it has, and it always makes excuses for its behavior, and the more moderate elements never turn in the other one. So, for example, I talked to imams in Houston, and what I found out is that when they have a march for moderate Islam, against things and supporting Donald Trump. The moderates only are a march of 23 or 40 or 50 people rather than 2 or 3,000 because they're afraid of repercussions being literally murder or fatwas against their daughter. And when 160 imams were fired in Houston alone from mosques back in the spring when they agreed with Donald Trump about ultra-vetting of Muslims that are extreme from certain countries, because these are moderate imams that want to de-radicalize Islam and turn it just like the Middle Ages, where the Catholic Church were murdering people like the Albigensians. They want to turn it to a more moderate version and mutate it so we have an American version, a de-radicalized non-Sharia law Islam that can be tolerated by the West. But there's great forces inside Islam, not only in America but worldwide, to prevent that from happening. Now, I know people say they want to have an alliance, but we need to make a safe zone through, I call metadata, and through actual protection of people that are Muslim to turn in dangerous imams and dangerous people that might be making bombs, acquiring material, communicating, sending money. And we need to use what I call extreme metadata. That's why I like the idea of Mr. Pompeo being head as director of CIA. I think also we need to do genetic screening of these people. And we cannot rely on the records because they stole 2 different visa and passport machines in Syria alone to get access. And many of them are coming through Mexico or other areas. And when they're given the order, tens of thousands of Muslim jihadists will go crazy in America. And what will happen is America will shove them all to a civil detention camp indiscriminately. Moderate Muslims will be the majority, unfortunately, because they haven't turned in their violent brothers, because it's part of their religion and their culture. So that's what I see as the problem.
Well, Bill, I would suggest that Islam is indeed one of the 3 great Abrahamic religions. It has its own sacred text, the Quran. It has its mystical leader, the Prophet Muhammad. It has churches, mosques, and imams, and religious practices. Bill, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That obtain around the world. You have to draw, I think, a clear distinction between the Shia and the Sunni. Most of the
I agree. I agree with you that they
are Sunni rather than Shia. Iran, a great Shia state, has been perhaps the most peace-loving major nation in the world. It hasn't attacked any other country since 1775. The ratification of the Constitution only began in 1787, so for longer than the United States has existed as a constitutional republic,
that's why
Iran has not attacked any other nation. The idea that Iran is sponsoring terrorism in the Middle East is an Israeli manufactured myth. It's not true.
I agree.
And Benjamin Netanyahu's crusade against Iran has no foundation whatsoever, and is indicative of the politics of the region where Israel wants to have no competitors, no counterbalance.
Exactly.
Which is why we were subjected to the orchestrated events of 9/11 in order to convert U.S. foreign policy from one in which, at least officially, we never attacked any nation that did not attack us first, to one in which we became an aggressor nation with a plan to take out the governments of 7 nations in the next 5 years, beginning with Iraq and Libya, ending with Syria and Iran.
Not going to happen.
All to benefit Israel.
Right.
And if it hasn't played out that way because of the appropriate intervention of Russia in accord with international law at the invitation of the government of Syria, it's not for lack of trying.
Right. Well, let me add a few things that'll bolster what you're saying. The first thing is my bloodline is from the Medo-Persian Empire. So the Cohens were brought to Esfahan, northwestern Iran, by basically the Kurds. So all of the so-called Cohens, the ones that returned to Lebanon that were even in the temple, were all originally Kurdish. Okay, they're part Kurdish. My family's name on my mother's side is Naima, which is from the Naimi tribe of the Kurds from Esfahan. So you're right. The Shiite Muslims wrongly have been accused of doing terrorism, and this is why I say it depends on where the religion is, in which country it is, and how it arises. Shiite Islam has not been a major terror state. It supported Hezbollah against the attacks by Israel of southern Lebanon, and I agree with you. The problem right now is that all of the terrorism that I see worldwide is Sunni, and it did not originate even from the Middle East. It originated from a place called Londonistan. Do you remember where that is? Londonistan is in London, England, where the deals were made with the Saudi kings and to amalgamate all the empires of Saudi Arabia. The big problem right now is after we went in and explored the oil of Iraq, it turns out most of the really large finds of new oil is in Kirkuk, in the northern area we call Media. And in fact, northern Iraq and Media has way more oil than Saudi Arabia by many, many times. It's up in the order of more oil and easier and higher quality than the oil in Venezuela. So I agree with you. I think what the problem is, though, because it's a chimeric or a religion that can actually mutate into the auspices of the British in their empire, building several centuries ago, and the setting up in the 1920s of pushing Wahhabism, which, by the way, was a combination of the British working with the Saudis. That Wahhabism and the pushing of Wahhabism is, in fact, behind the rise of people turning Muslim in prisons in the West. It's behind the rise of people like our mole in the CIA and the funding for University of Barack Obama, who's a spook, and his family were spooks. So you're right. The problem is, you see, whenever you're trying to decide things, you have what I call the lumpers and the splitters. There are, even among the so-Khazarian Jews of Israel, there are good people, but the general policy is not pro-Israel, it's pro-globalism. So Israel is just a large spike driven into the heart of the Middle East. And Israel, instead of being a blessing, is a cursing to the Middle East, because how many millions of people have died or been displaced by the state of Israel? Although we can't, how can I say this, we can't abandon them. We have to support a new version of control of Israel as an ally instead of them controlling us. Because what's happened over the decades since 1967, Israel has controlled us. On the other hand, the rise of extreme Islam, including the rise of extreme Islam, including the Palestinian state by Saudi Arabia and these other countries, is